Hi, I'm Brian McMahon with Rocket Plumbing, and today I want to talk a little bit about the importance of servicing your main shutoff valves in your unit. So this is an actual valve that I pulled off from a job I recently did. I was doing an inspection for a customer, and this is what's called a gate valve. So you have two types of valve. You have what's called a ball valve, which is more the lever kind, and there's a ball inside the valve, and then you have what's called a gate valve. Now a gate valve is more of the round handle. When you turn it, there's a stem that allows the gate to go up and down. It blocks it like a dam. Now what happened in this situation, I went to shut the water off because we were inspecting and we were actually fixing a leak on a faucet. So I go to shut it off like so, and everything seemed great. I made my repairs and I came back to the valve, and when I spun it open, the valve continued to spin and spin and spin, and the water was not turning on. The valve inside had been stayed in the shut position, but the stem had broke, so it was not activating the gate to go up and down. So if you can see in here, I'm going to show you a close-up. This is not even that old of a valve. This is only about 20 years old, maybe a little less. You see there was a, where the stem broke in here, it's fractured right there. If you look at the corrosion inside the valve, like so, okay, you can see how quickly these things get corroded. There's a lot of buildup. This is the gate. See the buildup on there? So you've got all this buildup on there, and that's what a ball valve or that's what the gate valve looks like inside the port. Okay, so this is supposed to go down and shut it off, and but unfortunately, as you can see, the stem broke. So I had a real situation on my hands. We had to call emergency contact. It took us an hour to get out there. We had to get a special shut-off key. I had to shut down a unit at about 7 p.m. at night. It wasn't very pleasant, but eventually we did make the repair. I had to cut the valve out, and it was a true nightmare, and it was a lesson learned. But I guess the moral of the story in this case is you need to service your valves regularly, and what that means is most valves, most people without even knowing just leave them in the on position forever. They buy a home, they move in, they don't think to service them, and the valve is just staying in the open position. Well, what you're supposed, and they usually don't turn it off until a repair comes in. Well, at that point you're at 50-50. It's going to hold or it's not. So what you need to do on a regular basis is you need to turn the valve on, and you need to turn it off, and you need to open it and close it, and you have to make sure the water is working. You need to test the fixtures, because a lot of times too, even if it's working, you have what's called calcium buildup, and inside that housing is what's called a seat. You can see the molding right here. A lot of buildup sits in there, so when the valve goes to close, it doesn't close properly, and a lot of the water escapes through, so now you can't make your repairs, and you have a real issue. And God forbid this happens on a weekend or late at night, you're going to have a bigger issue. So what you need to do is open your valves on and off. You need to service them, and then here you have what's called a packing nut. This is what keeps the valve mechanism in place. This needs to be serviced. They often leak. You see there's an O-ring on here. This needs to be replaced. And there's a couple other things we need to do at the time. And this is another example here. So this is a main shutoff valve. This is a 1-inch copper sweat a gate valve that should be replaced with a ball valve. And then you have what's called the angle valve. This is called your angle shutoff. You probably see these underneath your sink. This is for your, I'll grab another one here. This is what these look like, okay? You've probably seen these. These are the on-off ones that supply for your faucet, the water supply tube that connects to your faucet, your toilet, your laboratory sink, whatever that might be. Same concept. You have to open and close the valve regularly. This little stem in here is kind of the same with this guy. Unfortunately, they make these cheaper now than they did back in the day. These are no longer the brass and ceramic stems. They have these cheap plastic nylon ones, and they often break. So if this thing's been open for 15, 20 years and you go to turn it, oftentimes it just breaks and the valve mechanism does not engage, so you cannot shut off the water, or vice versa. You shut it all the way closed and then you go to turn it on and it breaks, and now this thing's shut in the off position. So these need to be serviced. Sometimes the handle needs to be repaired, and then also this is your packing nut, and this is what controls the valve from working. So what we could do at Rocket Plumbing, and next time around on your service call, or maybe you haven't used this yet, you want to call us out, we can service your valves. It's very simple. It's standard maintenance that should be done. We can come in, open and close your valves, adjust your packing nuts. Sometimes we have to spin these off, blow out the supply lines to make sure the rust that builds up in there gets kicked out of it. Or sometimes we can even take them off completely and blow out the lines and get any buildup that's in there, because that's another thing. It can restrict your water pressure too. So if you're ever turning on your valve and the pressure just isn't very good. A lot of times there's sediment and rust and calcium or a chlorine buildup in there, and it's restricting your flow. This could be in your shower head, your faucet, and any number of your fixtures could be affected by this. So this is just a general tip today on valve maintenance, opening, closing, and shutting off. And if you have any more questions, feel free to contact Rocket Plumbing. We could be happy to service you. Thank you, and have a great day.